If you don't have a MobLab account set up yet, go ahead. I'll put a link in the chat and you can set up your teacher account.
Hi, Debbie.
Hey, how's it going, Skeeter? You're muted, but that didn't look good. That expression didn't look good.
I've just been looking at the screen since about 8 o'clock this morning. Oh, hi, Martha.
How's it going?
Fine. I didn't find your link.
Oh, okay.
Can you send it to me?
Absolutely.
Nora said it was really good.
Well, thank you. See if I can find it again.
If you don't have a teacher or an instructor account set up yet, go ahead and do that at moblab.com. And then Nathaniel from MobLab is standing by, and he will, once he sees your teacher account come through, he can add you to the FTE class. So when it asks for the organization, put FTE in parentheses after your school name. That way he'll know you're part of this workshop and he can get you into our FTE class.
Thanks,
These are the
Debbie.
people. Go ahead, Nathaniel.
Yeah, and I just wanted to add, if anyone has any technical issues regarding MobLab, feel free to send me a private message in the chat feature at Zoom.
These are the names that I see already have set up their account, and Nathaniel has already got you into the FTE class. We have Jennifer Paulson, Elizabeth Teague, Ken Brown, Pamela Wolski, and Ted Hartso are all ready to go. Anybody else set up an account? And Martha, I did send yours to Nathaniel. He's working on that.
I'm all set. I'm already in. Perfect.
Oh, good.
I set up an account.
Okay. Wendy, which email address did you use?
I used whome@bostonpublicschools.org. I put FTE in the parentheses after my school name, like you said.
Okay.
I just finished my account.
It's yeah.
Yep.
Yep. Okay,
Okay,
good.
we found you. And who else just finished an account?
Kathy.
Kathy? I'll put Kathy's name in the chat to Nathaniel.
Thank you.
Which email address did you use, Kathy?
AZ Econ.
Is it K Pondy or Kathy?
It's Kathy.Pondy at azecon.org. Kathy.Pondy.
Okay.
Got it.
I set mine up on Tuesday and I got an email saying it was approved, but now when I try to log in, it says verifying account.
Okay.
1 second.
That's Heather, right?
Yes.
Heather, do you remember what email address you used? I'll put it in the chat to Nathaniel.
Yeah. Okay.
Go ahead. Which email address did you use?
Oh, hmolino@mnsd.org.
Okay.
Hi, James Donnelly. I set it up this morning.
Okay.
Eastern Standard Time. James Donnelly, jdonnelly@rsgc.on.ca.
James Donnelly. Okay. Heather, one more time. It was, what was the last part of your email address? At what?
At MNSD, Marple Newtown School District.org.
I got Heather. You should
you
have
found
received
Heather?
an invitation.
Okay.
Okay, thanks.
And now James Donnelly, is it J Donnelly?
jdonnelly@rsgc.on.ca.
I'll put J Donnelly. We'll see if you can get the rest of that, Nathaniel.
Sorry.
It's okay.
Let me put it in the chat box.
Okay, that would be good.
Perfect. And then
Richard Pauly.
Yep. Okay. And then I see Chelsea.
And I see Pamela here. But Pamela, if you guys could, you have the ability to change your name in Zoom. If you could change it to match the name you registered with, so FTE can check everybody off.
Okay. Let me think. What did I register?
All right, I see a lot more names. I see Jennifer Paulson, Elizabeth Teague, Ken Brown, Pamela Wolski, Ted Hartso, Martha Rush, Wendy Holm is in there, Kathy Pondy, Heather Molyneux, Richard Polly, Chelsea Julius. We're working on James Donnelly. Anybody else? If you haven't set up an instructor account yet, go ahead and do that at moblab.com. And then put your the email address that you are setting it up with in the chat so that we can make sure we get you added to the FTE class. Nathaniel is here from MobLab.
Yep, and
He's
I'm
working very fast.
working on it.
Yeah.
So right now, Judy Smith, there's just so many Smiths.
Did anybody know they've signed up already, but you didn't hear me call your name out? Let me know.
So Judy Smith, you should be good to go.
All right, and then we have a Jennifer Cook and Adam Vallis, or Vallis A.
Adam should be fine.
Okay.
Jennifer Cook, let's see. Yep.
I'm Steve. I thought I signed up as well, but I'm struggling to see. It does say Stephen's first class has been created. Is that
okay? So what email address did you use, Steve, to set it up?
sbloom@milken, MILKEN school.org.
Okay. Go ahead and put that in the chat for us.
Okay.
Ted, you're good to go. We have you're all set up. So once you're all set up, go ahead and log into MobLab. Okay, welcome everybody. While you're getting your instructor account set up and getting logged into MobLab, my name is Debbie Henney and I'm the curriculum director for the Foundation for Teaching Economics. And I also teach economics at Mesa Community College in Arizona, where I am right now. And we also have with us today Haley Sisler. She is from the FTE office and you've probably been in communication with for registering for these workshops. And do we still have Becky here? Becky is also from FTE. She is running backup help today, but you may have met her at some of the other workshops. So I do see some familiar faces that were with us at other workshops and some new faces. So we're going to give you a couple fun FTE lessons that you can do using the MobLab platform today. We're going to do both of them together. And we're going to hopefully get you familiar with using the MobLab platform from the instructor side. And even my big goal at the end is to even let some of you try to run a game where we all could participate as the students. So, all right, I'm going to read the list one more time of people that I see and that are added to the class. If you don't hear your name, let me know. We have Jennifer Paulson, Elizabeth Teague, Ken Brown, Pamela Wolski, Ted Hartso, Martha Rush, Wendy Holm, Kathy Pondy, Heather Molyneux, Richard Polly, Chelsea Julius, Adam Vallis, Judy Smith, Jennifer Cook, Karen Yancey, Stephen Bloom. Craig, I don't see you on there yet. Are you setting up an account?
Is that me?
That's you, Craig.
I didn't hear my name either. And I'm a Greg.
Oh, you're Craig. Oh, do you have two accounts? No.
No.
Greg.
There's a Greg and a Craig, apparently.
A Greg and a
But
Craig.
I did not hear my name.
Go ahead, Greg, on your Zoom settings, click on the dots by your picture, and you can change your name so it matches. You can add Greg on there for us.
Oh, it just has my last name.
Yeah, then we'll know who you are. And then Craig also, I don't think I saw you in there. Can you set up an account, Craig?
I'll do it later on. I'm actually mobile, so I'll just be listening.
Okay, and Greg, did you set up an account with MobLab?
I've already had one from the past previously.
Okay, so just when you figure what email address that is, put it in the chat, and then Nathaniel can find your old account and he can add you to our FTE class. Anybody else not in there? Didn't hear their name?
I have not heard my name yet.
Okay, Tammy, are you setting it up right now?
I did right when you told me to.
Awesome. Okay, so Tammy, what email address did you use? Go ahead and put it in the chat.
Okay, I did already.
All right. Let's see. Do you see? We'll just scroll up a little bit for Tammy. I don't see yours, Tammy. Would you mind putting it at the bottom?
Sure.
I'm not. Okay.
I just created an account and I put my email in there.
Awesome. Thank you, Frank. Okay, so there's Frank's F Rosa. You see that one, Nathaniel? And there is Tammy's. It's Riggers T. So we'll get both of those. Anybody else that we can have Nathaniel work on? Rachel, are you in there? You're muted. Sorry, Rachel.
I had to find the button. I just signed up. I'm just waiting for a verification, but I'll put my email in the chat box.
Yeah, putting your email in there also lets Nathaniel go in and verify you very quickly. So sometimes that takes a day, but he can do it right here for us.
Tammy and Frank should be good to go. And now I see Rachel.
Okay. All right.
And if there's anyone else, just either send me a private message in Zoom or put it in the chat.
Okay. And Greg is working on his. All right. Well, I think we will go ahead and get started. And I want to tell you just a little bit about FTE's, kind of how we came to partner with MobLab this summer for our Economics for Leaders programs. A few years ago, we actually had MobLab come to an Economics for Leaders program where we were experimenting. These are normally summer programs where we have 30, to maybe 40 students in attendance. And it's like a week-long summer camp kind of experience. And one summer we thought, can we scale this? Can we bring 80 students to one, campus? And so we did a really big program, but one of the challenges was how could we do some of our activities that we still do with such large numbers of students? And so we brought MobLab in that summer, and the students participated in some of the games, that we do, like market simulations. They're in this much larger meeting room with much larger group. And it turned out it was fun. The students liked it. There were very, few. MobLab was still relatively new back then, and very low, tech issues. It worked out well. But the one thing we noticed is the students it didn't feel this, like they weren't running around the room, high-fiving, shaking hands. And so at the time we thought, and we decided, well, we're never going with 80 students again. That just wasn't what we thought it would be. So, and so then we, kind of hadn't used MobLab since then, but then this summer when everything had to go virtual and we had to pivot very quickly, instantly we remember, now all of a sudden those activities where they're running around the room and high-fiving and shaking hands, those aren't going to happen anyway. And how can we do these activities virtually? We knew MobLab already had a solution because they had built this platform and they've been, developing and crafting and perfecting it. And it's actually created for the college, university audience. But many of their activities are exactly what we do in the high school classroom. And so what we did is we took our FTE lessons and we just kind of rewrote them so that they could be delivered virtually via a web conferencing tool like this. So whatever you're going to be using at your school, whether that's Zoom or WebEx or Microsoft Teams or Google, you need some way to communicate with your students, be able to see all their faces. And then this app that now they can play the game just like they were in the room, but they're all playing on their phones or their mobile devices or another window on their computer. For purposes of today's activity, I'm going to recommend that you have Zoom. If you have more than one monitor, put Zoom on one of them and then have MobLab on another one. If you only have one monitor, I would recommend kind of shrinking Zoom down so maybe it's half of your screen, so that then you can have in the other half of your screen, you can have the MobLab window, okay, logged into MobLab. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to play the fish game. And so before we get there, I'll share my screen so you can see my MobLab account and hopefully find your way into the same class. So, all right, let's share this screen. All right, you can see my MobLab screen. So when you log into MobLab, somebody mentioned that they saw their first class listed up there. Like, see, here's Debbie's first class. And then once Nathaniel's added you to the FTE class, you'll also see one called the FTE workshop. You guys see that? One called FTE workshop. That's the one we're going to use today. And so I want you to go ahead and go into that class. I'm going to make your faces bigger. I just upgraded to the new edition of Zoom, which lets me see 48 of you on one screen, which is I'm really excited about for when I have my own classes. Okay, so I'm going to go into the FTE workshop class, and in this class I have a playlist with the activities we're going to do called the August 13th workshop. But for you guys, when you're in the class, notice at the top right now, because I've shared this with you, you're logged into your teacher account, and so you're looking at this class just like I am as the teacher of the class. And so what you can do over here to the right is you can change to student view. So this red person icon that you see at the top right of the screen, you're going to want to go into student view. So, all right. So, and it says there are no active sessions right now is what it will show you. No active sessions once you're in student view. But in a minute, you'll see an active session. So is there anybody that can help get to this part really quick? Raise your hand or unmute your microphone and I'll walk you through it. Anybody still?
We've got a message from Sarah and a message from Frank.
In the chat? Okay, scrolling. All right, let's see. You don't have the FTE workshop yet?
Yeah, Debbie,
Sarah Makepeace.
Yeah, it's the same thing as you were telling us to get into. So I logged in my account, but I don't see, what is it exactly we're looking for?
So I will back up. I'm gonna go back to, you guys stay in student view that are already there. I'm gonna go back to instructor view.
Okay.
And you are Frank. So Frank, yes. Let's make sure we have did you already provide your address in the chat to Nathaniel?
No, I'm sorry.
Okay.
I did come in a little bit late. So
that's okay. So Frank, put your email address in the chat, and Nathaniel from MobLab is going to add you to the FTE class.
Got it.
And he's working on Sarah. Is it Sarah or Skeeter in your email address?
Debbie, I don't see it either.
It's S Makepeace.
It's just S Makepeace or Makepeace?
S Makepeace.
Okay. Did you put that in the chat?
I found it, but I had to go left. It had my class, my first class.
Oh, there.
But then I went left and I found the EFL link.
Oh, so you were in your first class. Okay. Right. So for example, if I'm in my first class, then you out of your first class, and then you will see all the classes, and one of them is the FTE workshop.
Yes, that's what I did.
And Richard, did you find it this time?
Yeah, I just had to hit the arrow and move me over.
Awesome. All right, anybody else we can help get connected before we jump into our first game?
Nathaniel, can we check on Denny Proctor and Tim Martins?
Yes, Denny Proctor. And so Denny, will you put your email address in the chat so Nathaniel can look you up? And Tim Martins, the Lakeland address is in there also. All right, so when you guys, let me know once you guys get in. And Adam says, should we see all the classes you have? No, because you're only added, I only shared this FTE workshop class with you. So that's the one that you will see. All right, so in that class, you're gonna go into the class, but you're gonna change your view to student view. And then it's gonna show you, it'll say there's no active sessions, and that's okay. You're just gonna sit there and wait for an active session to start. I'll start that in a minute. But I'm gonna share a different screen with you so we can look at some slides to get started here. All right, so this, we're gonna start with the fish game. And if your students were playing, you're playing and you're gonna be playing on your computer in the student view. But if your students were playing and they were using a mobile device, they could also play on their computer. But if they were using a phone or a tablet, there's actually an app that they could download and play on. We're gonna keep it simple for this workshop and just have you guys play in the computer screen that you're going to be working in. And so here are the instructions for the game. We're going to be playing. See if we can fix that.
Good.
Okay. So once we get into the game, you're going to see a screen that looks like a lake. You'll see boats, you'll see fish, and the number of fish that the lake has in the beginning is the capacity. So every season, each fisher gets to choose how many fish they want to catch. And at the end of the season, the number of fish that are remaining, they double up to the lake's capacity. At the end of the game, when the game ends, all the fish that are left are split evenly among the fishers on that lake. So your payoff is actually all the fish that you catch, plus your share of whatever fish are left at the end that gets divided among all of you, okay? So this is your screen, right? This is the game that you're gonna see when you start the game. And actually, let me see. Let me leave student view. I feel like somebody already
It actually already started for me. Should I be doing something?
I know, someone started the game for me. So I'm actually gonna, so what I want you to do is not go into any games. I want you to go into instructor view. You guys see that? I'm gonna stop the game. Okay, so don't click on any games on the left. Let me show you another screen. Let me show you this. Okay, so this is this is what it looks like when you're in the FTE workshop class as a teacher. So I don't want you opening any of these games because that's gonna be, we're gonna play it as a student. And so to play as a student, everybody's gonna go to the top right and click on the red icon, and you're gonna change yourself to student view, okay? Everybody get in student view? All right. And so you're gonna be in student view, and now I'm gonna go back to the instructions, so nobody touch anything and just watch the instructions. And if you need help adding in a minute, I will help catch everybody up. All right, here we go, back over here. So this is what the screen is gonna look like once we start a game. It's gonna say at the very bottom, it'll show you which season we're in. So this right here looks like we're in season 1 out of 5 seasons. It will show you how many people are fishing in your lake. So there will be 4 people fishing in the lake. It also shows what the beginning of what the fish stock is at the beginning of the season. So there's 160 fish. And remember, if this is when the game is starting, if there's 160 fish, we know that that's the capacity of the lake. And remember, at the end of the game, whatever fish are left will double up to the capacity of the lake. So if there were 80 fish left, it would double up to 160. But if there were 100 fish left, it's not going to double to 200 because the lake can only hold 160 fish, okay? All right, so then we have this on the right next to the hook, you'll see the number of fish you have caught. And every time that you catch fish, that number will update. What doesn't update is that 160, the number of fish that it starts with, that will get updated every time we start a new season. So you're not going to know how many fish everybody else is catching live. Just like if you were a fisherman out on a boat, you know how much you catch. You can see other people fishing, but until everybody brings their catch in, you don't really know how many fish everybody caught. So in between each season, that when the new season starts, you'll see how many fish are in there for the next season. This is your fishing boat. And this is really complicated, but to fish, you tap on the boat if you were playing on a phone, that's what your students would do, or you click on it if you're playing at your computer like you guys are with your mouse, you just click on the boat. You click on the boat to fish, the boat moves, it catches fish. You can click on the anchor to stop fishing, click it again, to lift the anchor up and move around, and click on the boat, catch fish. That's how you fish. Everybody got it? Sometimes your net might catch more fish, sometimes it might catch a little bit less, but to fish, you click on the boat. The season will end when everybody stops fishing or when the time runs out, and the timer is in the bottom right, okay? You do have the ability to chat with the other people fishing on your lake. There will be 4 fishers on your lake, and so you'll all be in groups of 4. So here's an example of how the payout is going to work. So for example, let's say there's 4 fishers on your lake and the capacity is 160 fish. And in all the seasons up to the final season, you have caught a total of 85 fish. In the final season, you catch 25 more and there's 30 remaining on the whole lake. So your payout would be your 85 fish that you caught. Those 30 fish that are left are going to double, so they would turn into 60 fish. And those 60 fish get divided amongst the 4 of you, which means you would get 15 more fish. So, is that right? I missed that? Oh, you caught 85, and then you caught 25 in the last round, and then we're going to add in your share of that last doubling, which would be 15 more, and your total is going to be 125 fish. Any questions? All right. Now, here is where you would want to think about as a teacher what kind of incentive you might want to give. And so in the lesson instructions that I've written up with the game settings that, that FTE has, if you just copy this game, well, actually, no, I'm not going to tell you that right now. I'm not going to tell you what I would do. We had money in the summer with the students. So we said every 100 fish was 1 EFL buck. I know you're not going to give your students your own money. But you could maybe give them extra credit points, you know, like every 100 fish you catch will be 1 extra credit point on a test or something like that. All right, we're going to start with a survey. So you're going to click on, if you haven't yet, click on the red icon at the top right when you log into MobLab and change to student view. And I'm going to launch a pre-game survey right now for the fish game. I'm going to launch the pre-game survey. And so now if you kind of refresh your screen, your MobLab screen, you're going to see an active session pop up called the survey, the pre-game survey. You guys see that? And go ahead and take the first item is some information, and then the second 2 are questions, and we're just going to check to make sure everybody understands how the fish game is going to work. Okay, now is a good time. If you're not connected yet, let me know and I can help you get connected in MobLab. And I know some of you are just going to be observing, it looks like. So Karen, I won't be hounding you.
So where's the survey at?
Okay, so are you in student view?
Yes.
Okay, and are you added to the FTE workshop class?
Yes.
Okay, so so just refresh your screen and see if it shows pre-game survey.
On the left or the right, or?
So it's taking me to, it just says FTE workshop, and then I can press a button that goes to join.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then when I go there, it doesn't give me
to join the class, Nathaniel?
Same with me.
Yeah.
You're going to join, yeah, you're going to join the active session.
Okay, and then it's just giving me like slides.
Yeah, that's the survey. So you
I
might have
see.
to
Okay.
you might have to scroll down a little bit and
Okay,
you can continue.
I get it.
But you're all good.
Okay, who else? Somebody still not seeing it? Judy, did you find it?
I'm Wendy, and mine is giving me directions about the game, and it's counting down from 3 minutes.
Yes, you are in the survey. So after you read those directions, you click the next one, and you're going to see a question, a survey question.
Okay. Okay.
Anybody else not in that's looking for it? Jennifer, are you looking for it still? Okay, so Jennifer, I'm going to have you share your screen real quick, and I'll help you find it, okay? Oh, she's on her phone. Okay, that might be a little bit different. Do you have the MobLab app?
Oh, I don't. I'm running it just online, and it won't let me change into student view.
Yeah, so on the phone, I don't think we have the ability, is that right, Nathaniel? We can't do instructor view.
You're automatically in the student view if you log in on the app. So if you download the app, you should be able to participate.
Okay, thank you.
And just log in with your regular credentials that you set when you.
Okay, but you'll have to get the app first, right?
Okay.
I don't think it works in web browsers on phones from what is that correct, Nathaniel?
Yeah, it's a little bit clunky. So we really recommend on a mobile device that people download the app. So it's available for free on iOS or Android or whatever.
Thank
Deb,
you.
there's a handful of comments in the chat about they're just seeing slides or they don't see the survey. Can you maybe describe what the survey is supposed to look like, or what screen they're supposed to be looking
So
for?
you're going to be in something called the pre-game survey for the fish game. And the first one is just some information about the game, the first slide picture that you're going to see. And then you're going to have 2 questions that you're going to see. And the questions are going to ask things about the payout. Like, do you understand how many fish you would catch or what your payout would be?
Debbie, I had to scroll down to see the question, so maybe they're not seeing that.
Just scroll down underneath. Okay,
Yeah.
that is helpful. And so Frank, you said
where you can ask.
Let me ask Frank real quick. You said you're stuck trying to enter the answer, meaning, Frank, does that mean it won't let you?
Yeah, no, I'm good now. Yeah,
Okay.
I also didn't see it. It was a little kludgy. I couldn't get it to scroll down easily on my Mac, but I see it now. Thank you.
All right. And how about, who else was speaking up? Is that Greg, right?
Yeah, I'm okay now. It was a little clunky.
Okay.
And Heather, you think you might have played the game?
I don't think Heather could have played the game. I haven't started.
Yeah,
the
I
game.
went through, I had to answer questions based on if how many fish were caught, how many would be available the next session.
That's it.
That's it. That's the survey.
Oh, okay. It doesn't say survey on my screen. It just says the, okay.
August 13th workshop, is that what it says?
Correct.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah. So I named the playlist August 13th workshop. What we could do, or what you would do with your students, is you would say this would be like the fish game, you know, you would name the playlist the game that the kids were playing that day. And so I apologize that was my confusion, or I caused that confusion. All right, so I can see there are 25 of you that are in there, and 19 of you have answered question 2. The rest of you, if you're still on that first slide with all the information, it's really going through the same things we did in the slide. And you can, if you just scroll down to the bottom and go to the next one, you'll start to see the questions. Scroll down, there's a place to answer. Any other questions? Unmute your microphone and speak up. One thing I learned this summer with the students was the first time we did an activity like this, I just planned for extra time for them to get used to it and get into it. And then every time we did one after that, it was like, literally there was no time. They all were familiar. They knew exactly where to go. They knew how to join the game. It was very quick. But you always want to plan for a little bit extra time just to teach them how the technology works and let them explore. And that's part of the reason we're doing this pregame survey, is just because it gives everybody a chance to get logged in, to join the session, to start those survey questions. Because now when we start the game in a minute, you've all had this experience.
Now, this is Wendy. At the top of this last slide where it says your results, it's saying end of game. I think that's kind of confusing.
You're seeing, the question is showing you a screenshot of what the game is going to look like, and it's asking you. So scroll down underneath that and see if you see a question.
No, I'm on the slide that has my results on it, but just at the top of it,
go ahead and
calls
share
it.
your screen, Wendy.
Okay.
I'm going to stop sharing.
Okay.
Actually, I'm not. I'm going. Oh yeah, stop share. There we go.
Yeah, I think, Wendy, what you might be seeing is
this is what I'm seeing.
End of game. So
It
we're
says
a very
game.
we're a very game oriented company. So that's why we call all activities.
Everything
games.
is a game. Even though it's a survey, it's a game. Okay,
yes.
Got it.
Okay, so you're done. That means you got to the end. Okay.
Gotcha. Okay,
all
that's right. That's why I was checking.
All right. So those of you, I think most of you are. I'm going to let you keep. If you're still working on those, I'm going to go ahead and, are there any questions, first of all, before we start the game? Maybe you got a question wrong, or you have a question about the questions in the survey. Okay, how do we fish?
Click the boat.
Click the boat, right? How many people are fishing on your lake? 4 people. And your fish will be by the number of hook up at the top. There's a timer that shows how long the game is going at the bottom right. Okay, So I'm going to go ahead and start the game, and I'm going to end this one. So we're going to go to, all right, so now you're still in student view, and if you kind of refresh, you'll see a new active session called the August 13th workshop. Go ahead and join that. And you'll be put into a lake with other fishers, and you can start fishing. And let's see here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, I see at least one group has ended round 1, and they'll be moving on. There's always a pause in between the rounds, but it looks like all the groups now have moved on to round 2.
And I see you enabled the chat feature.
I
right?
did enable the chat. You can chat with each other, with the people in your lake if you would like. I also tell the students, you know, those of you who have played the fish game live with students, this is much quieter. And so one thing, that was something I had to get used to over the summer. And I told the students that while you can chat in the game with the people in your lake, you're also welcome here to unmute your microphones and just talk to the class out loud. Or you don't know which people that you're looking at are fishing on your lake, but 3 of them are. And now I see that we're moving on to round 3. Everybody's in round 3.
You definitely have less fish.
Less fish in your group, huh?
We have none.
Oh, you guys don't have any left. We have, there are 5 rounds, so we'll see. It looks like some groups are already in the 4th round. I see somebody else made it in, and so you are playing, but you'll just be behind a little bit from everybody else, but we'll let you get as much play time in as you can. Okay, it looks like most groups are finishing round 5. One more group I'll wait to finish. Group 5. All right, so, and group 5 just finished. So I know there was one person who joined late, and I'm gonna cut you off, but we'll play this again in a minute. So I'm gonna go ahead and finish the game, and I'm gonna share my screen. You're gonna stay in student view still, but I'm gonna show you the results. Let me move my Zoom windows. All right, so we're gonna look at the results and see. I heard Kathy say there were less fish. I think, who was it? Chelsea maybe said they were out of fish at some point. We had 7 groups. I'm gonna click for the first 6 of you. Okay, so this graph here, can you guys, actually I think I'm gonna show my whole screen. So
there you go, Deb.
Share. All right, now you see a graph that says beginning of fish stock. Beginning, okay. So here, we can see how many fish there were at the beginning of each round, and everybody started with 160 fish. By the time we got to round 2, there was one group that had 80. Looks like here's another group. When I hover over, I can see some details for those groups, but like here's another one. This group had 128 fish left because the fish left doubled. And one group was able to start round 2. Let's see if I can point in the right place and get it to pop up. No, let me try another one. Here we go. We'll go with this one for an example. So they caught 96 of the 160 fish. The ones remaining doubled, which means round 2 started with 128 for this group. By the time we got to round 3, 3 groups right here had no fish at the beginning of round 3 and for the rest of the game. This group had a few fish, but by the time they got to round 4, they didn't have any, 0 by the end of round 4. Same thing with this light blue group. This group was able to still have some fish, but by the time they got to the beginning of round 5, they also didn't have any more fish. Now, remember, even if you had ended round 5 with 80 fish, would those have doubled? And you would have gotten a payout? So, so something happened there. Here's another graph that shows the percent of existing stock caught. And some groups had caught all of their fish, you know, by round 2. Here's that last group that caught, you know, 100% of their fish by that round 4. All right, so we're gonna try again. We're gonna try something else. So we're gonna do a new rule. And this time you have, I'm gonna do a different share for you. This time the new rule is you get your own private area of the lake to fish in. Can you see the new rule? Okay. And so you'll notice that when you're fishing, there will be it'll say one person fishing in your lake. You get your own area, nobody else is fishing with you. You have exclusive rights to fish in this little lake, okay? And everything else works just the same. This will show you the number of fish that you're starting with, and that is the capacity of your lake. At the end, that capacity, however many fish you're left with, will double up to the capacity of the lake. So if you have 30 fish left, it's not going to double to 60 because in this case, the capacity is 40. If you had 20, they would double to 40. If you had 10 left, it would double to 20. You'll see your time down here. We're going to let this one run for 4 periods, and you will see the number of fish you have caught right up here next to the hook. Any questions before we start? All right, so I'm going to start a new game. If you refresh your student view screen, you will see the new game. Go ahead and join the August 13th workshop. I have 23 of you in. We're looking for one more person. There's 24. I'll give you a little update. Looks like we have about half of you are in round 3. Most of you now are in period 3 or season 3. Suppose you could chat with yourself if you wanted to. All right, we have some groups are now starting their last period. Remember, anything that you have at the end still doubles, and that is added to your payout. Okay, I see some people have finished. Tim finished. He must have some experience fishing. All right. And our last person is wrapping up. So I'm going to go ahead and end the game and show you our results this time. All right, so again, what I'm going to show you right now, you're going to see the teacher view. You can stay in student view right now. And here are the results this time. I'm going to select, everybody was in their own lake. I'm just going to select a few of you for right now to see. All right, so we are putting some of you on a graph. And here we have, I selected how many groups? That's quite a bit. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So I have 9 groups up here, and 7 of those 9 had started each round with 40 fish. And even at the last round had 40 fish, which means, is this sustainable? They could keep doing this for a long time. They figured it out. Now, here, this is an example of somebody who didn't quite figure it out, or something happened that round, but notice by the time they got to this round, they were able to bring their stock of fish back up to the lake's capacity. Now, something happened here, right? This person, maybe they're, what could explain this? Maybe they didn't understand. Maybe they're going to die, and they're like, "Hey, this is my last time I'm going to fish this lake." Are they going to be able to fish after round 4? They wouldn't, because there's no fish left. And so in this game, because we are doing a last round of the game, the way to kind of represent the future is the idea that whatever's there is going to double. And so even in that last round, it's important to emphasize to students that whatever's left doubles, and then that is added to your payout, so that there's this understanding of kind of the future, where there's a value of having fish there in the future. Okay, so you can see there was, with especially those 3 groups, I pointed out some experimenting going on about how many fish do we catch. But you can see that as people figured it out, that there's an incentive not to fish too much. Now, what happened in the first round that you played the game? Why did you catch the fish so quickly? Let me switch to some slides over here. Let's do this one. Okay, so were you surprised by the outcome the first time that we played the game? Unmute your microphone, just speak up if you are. Anybody surprised?
No, I don't think so. I think people wanted to catch fish and thought that if they didn't catch it, they would be gone.
Did you expect that to happen, Frank?
Yes, so you tried to catch as many fish as you could before you ran out.
And so you weren't surprised. Anybody else surprised? You kind of expected, hey, we're all adults here. We're teachers. We care about the environment. Anybody else? Surprised by your colleagues? Rachel?
I was surprised we ran out of fish the 5th round when we had done really well the previous rounds.
Your group did really well.
5 and I'm like, where'd our fish go?
Something happened. Now, you guys, you said we. Why you were part of that group that was able to, you still had fish by the 4th round, and why were you guys able to do that?
We actually worked pretty independently, although I noticed someone in the chat said we need to figure out how many fish each of us should catch each round. And that's what I was.
Effort. Okay, some communication.
Yes.
If other groups, did any other groups try to communicate? Not really.
In our group, we had chat that said, "I suck." But I also couldn't find the chat for a while because I was like, "Oh, we gotta coordinate." And then it was the 4th round, and we were out of fish by round 2 anyway.
Okay, so my question is, I guess, what were you assuming about your peers when you played this game?
That they would take as many as they could.
You expected them to take a lot.
Yes.
And do you think they expected you to take fish?
Yes.
Yeah.
And so my is this predictable? if we know that economics is a study of choice and we assume people are rational, self-interested, you know, we do things for good reason, then is this predictable? What was the benefit? Okay, so we want to understand people's choices. We're going to do it. We're going to take a 3-step process to understand this outcome. First, we want to understand the choices that people made, and then we're going to evaluate that outcome. And then we're going to, you know, kind of decide, is there a policy or some change that could give us a better outcome, maybe perhaps a role for government. So in understanding the behavior, what was the benefit of waiting? Somebody that did want to wait, maybe you tried to wait. Anybody raise your hand if you tried to wait, you knew it would be better to not catch so many fish up front, you tried waiting. Anybody? And how did that work out for you, Tammy? Okay, if you want to unmute Tammy, tell me how it worked out. Or Chelsea, tell me how it worked out for you. Go ahead, Tammy.
Not great, but we did make it to the 5th round, so.
Okay. Oh, and you guys were the ones that were able to kind of get on board a little bit in the beginning. How about you, Chelsea? How did waiting benefit you?
It worked for the first few rounds, and then we made it to round 4, and that's when
Okay, so you were part of that same group. Anybody wait in one of those groups that was out of fish by the time you got to the 2nd round? I mean, in fact, if you did wait and didn't catch it, what did somebody else do?
They caught it, right? I mean,
they caught it.
So it's the incentive. It's the incentive to get the right amount right away, and then see how the rest behave, in my view.
So, but if you wait and somebody else gets it, you got nothing, right?
Well, I wouldn't wait. In other words, I would jump in right away. It's like a hunting license, you know. It's like hunting season, so you got to go in right away, but you only want to get your allotted amount. If you anticipate how many that are going to be caught by cooperation, it's in your incentive to get your amount right away so they don't steal it away. So at least you do your amount, and then if other people keep doing and doing and doing, they don't understand the game, then maybe they'll learn the next round. But if you wait, you're going to get, you know, yeah.
And if I put some numbers to what Frank is basically saying, if you wait, you're going to get nothing. And so the cost, you know, is you lose at that point that you could have had for the fish that you caught. The net benefit of waiting is -1. The benefit of catching a fish is I just got a fish. And people weigh the cost and benefits. And the benefit is greater than the cost, marginal benefits greater than marginal cost, we do it. And so it makes sense that people chose to catch the fish. Let's evaluate the outcome though. From society's perspective, there was much, you got much less of the value of the pie. If we think about all the fish, and especially compared to the second game, that could have went on forever, right? Here, the fish were gone for most of you by round 2. And so when we talk about efficiency, we didn't achieve the maximum potential size of the pie. This outcome is what we would say in economics is inefficient. The actual size is less than the potential. Sometimes people refer to this as a market failure. I prefer to think of it as a failure of something else. I'll give you the term in a minute, but there's a loss of potential there. So what was the problem? Why did the group fail to achieve this efficient outcome? Just call it out.
They didn't work together from the beginning.
Okay, so people, what? They're not smart enough to work together?
No, they're selfish.
They're self-interest.
Self-interest.
Selfish,
Self-interest.
self-interested.
Look, if you're in a big family, you got to take what's on the table or there's nothing left.
I know, I see it happen all the time. My kids, you know, if there's garlic bread, you know, they'll have their little bowl of pasta and like 4 pieces of garlic bread, because if they wait and they go back, there won't be any there, right? People are greedy. Isn't that what we hear? I heard people say self-interested, but if the problem is greed, is it possible to eliminate self-interested behavior?
Yes.
Is it?
Not really.
No.
I see some of you teachers nodding your head, and maybe this is because of the environment we all work in, where we are, what are we doing? We're trying to mold and shape young minds. And from the moment children are born, what are we trying to teach them to do?
Share.
You know, be nice, share, right? In fact, entire societies have been built on, if you can just put other people, you know, and their needs and wants in front of your own, it will be this great utopia. I'm gonna, you know, in my classroom, I would go walk over, I'd come over here and I'd say, okay, I'm gonna stand in the opinion corner, my opinion corner over here. This is my opinion, but I don't think it's possible to eliminate self-interested behavior. I
You
think
know,
it's
Debbie,
just
can
kind
I
of.
chime in? Can I
Well,
chime
hold
in?
on, Frank.
Okay.
Let me tell you why, and then I'll
Okay,
let you chime in.
I got you.
So if when you even, and maybe this is my experience as being a teacher as well, but also as parents, what's one of the first thing kids learn to say? One of their first words.
Mine.
Mine.
No, mine. I mean, it's just, there's something about human behavior that we want things, right? And we care about things that are important to us, and we value those things. And especially if it's me and mine and my family over strangers or people over there. So rather than arguing, and that's why I said it's my opinion, because some people might say, maybe we can, but I haven't, I'm not convinced yet. Rather than arguing or saying, about can we solve the self-interest problem, I like to approach it like the scientists do, kind of like the aero engineers do, and say, instead of trying to eliminate self-interested behavior, can we just assume that it's there and capitalize on it? And I just saw Frank go like this. Frank, I thought you were going to argue with me, and now you're saying thumbs up. Go ahead,
No,
Frank.
I didn't want to argue with you. I wanted to kind of get to that point in maybe a different way. Like when I've been to an FTE workshop, and they kind of hate me because I'm a former trader. So, and teachers like to cooperate, generally speaking, because we are trying to inculcate this in our students. So I kind of screwed up a lot of games because this game, like I'll grab it all for myself up to that point. And be greedy as it will, but if you understand that as marginal benefit over marginal cost, that's how you can regulate it. In effect, you set up the system so it goes against you if you violate the norms.
So,
I don't know if it makes sense.
and you know what, whether you have a Frank in the class or not, this is always the outcome. And you guys, the teachers have run this game. It always works this way, right? Everybody grabs and there's not enough left. And so this idea, when I said let's approach it like aero engineers, economists assume self-interest. We just say, you know what, given that people are self-interested, how can we get a better outcome? Exactly. Just like the aero engineer assumes gravity. They don't say, how can we solve gravity? We want to make things fly. Now, if we can just solve this gravity problem, that's not what they do. They say, given gravity, how can we make things fly? Given self-interest, how can we get a better outcome than you guys depleting all the fish stock, right? So we don't blame the people. Consistently poor outcomes result from poor incentives or underlying institutional structural flaws. Is there a way we can change the rules of the game? And so this is the name that we have for this, is the tragedy of the commons, the outcomes of common ownership. When everybody owns it, it's like nobody owns it. In fact, how did you claim ownership over a fish in the first round? Grabbing it before somebody else had it. Where in the second time that we played the game, you had an exclusive right to that fish. You weren't worried about people coming and taking that fish. You didn't have to hurry and grab it. You knew that you could wait. You could make an investment, right? You could not grab the fish right away, wait for them, to repopulate, then catch more fish. And so we changed the rules of the game. This was a property right rule, a change, a role for government. Now, if we had assigned property rights, but there was a Frank who could come and jump on any one of your lakes and still take them, we would have seen an outcome just like round one. So they have to be well-defined and enforced. And with that, those property rights are an example of a market-based solution to a commons problem, to an environmental problem. But they can increase the value of investments and then make it have that so that they have a bigger payoff in the future. Now I want to switch screens and show you real quick for your students what this would look like. Let me drag some windows out of the way. I'm going to close the results tab. You also have access to something called a scoreboard. And you can see how everybody did. Now in this game, the maximum number of fish when you had private property rights, the maximum payout would have been $120. And we have several people that got really close to that. And I could show all the names, and because you're all teachers, you probably won't mind, but especially if you're Stephen or Jennifer, because you can be like, look at me, I got a lot of fish. But when we do this, you could also, one way that you could award students is, hey, everybody plays, and then I'm just gonna I'm gonna pick 4 students that I want to award for playing this game. And so we could do a draw, and it would say, okay, these 4 people are gonna get a prize today. Thank you for participating in the game. because I know you're not going to have the same kinds of incentives that you would have in the classroom, candy or whatever you could give out. So I'm going to close those results. I'm going to go back to the results from the commons fishery. Even though we already played it, I can go back into that game and I can still pull up the scoreboard and see the student results. And here, now you might not want to know, who's at the top. I'm going to show you anyway. So I could just show like player number 1, and we could see Frank's name up there. Frank did very well, right? He got a lot of fish.
I said I was going to do that.
But we can see on this list, I can see, it ranks points.
That's the other Frank. That's not me.
Yeah.
He came out on the top versus, out of the 24 students, Frank came out on top, and then it would rank them. The points are all the way down to number 1. Here's the payoff. And so what I did this summer is when I played this game with students, I took game 1, the time we played it the first time and the time we played it the second time, and I added them all together. And the most that you're going to see a student, so here we have, somebody might have gotten 220 would have been their payout. The average, most students were somewhere in between 100 and 200 would be their payout. So that information you have access to even after the game is over. It stays in your teacher dashboard. All right, I'm going to stop for a minute. And are there any questions at this point about the fish game and the student experience?
I would just say, in my defense, I live in a coastal town. We're fishing, and I know a lot of fishermen. And so we have, quotas that you can catch, lobstermen, fishermen, and stuff like that. So that would tie into to my presentation.
And I'm glad you brought that up, Frank.
Because I know, I have friends and cousins that fish, so I know there's quotas. So you get as much as you can, because the government will probably come in and then drop that quota.
And those quotas,
the boat is parked, if you will, at the pier for X amount of days. Anyway, I won't say any more, but it's a real life thing I could use in my classroom.
It is, and those quotas are actually, they're not something that was always there. If you look at any, I don't know if we have any history teachers in the room, but we actually have, history in the United States of having fisheries that have been just depleted, the fish stock. Some of them have come back, but a lot of them, fish just disappeared. And quotas are an example of a property rights solution. Realistically, I can't, and fish move around. I can't divide up the lake with lines and say, you fish here, you fish here. The fish move around, right? But how could we divide it up like we did in this game? Quotas is exactly a way that we could do that. We give Frank the right to catch 40 fish, each period. We give Ted the right to catch 40 fish. Now, maybe Ted says, I don't want to fish this year. He could sell that right. If it belongs to him and he has the right to transfer it to somebody else, he could sell that or lease it out to somebody else with a boat that wants to fish. And either way, by setting that quota that people can catch, they can set it at the amount that would be sustainable. And this is an example of a property rights solution, just like we saw in this game, where the government is playing the role of defining and enforcing the property right, in this case, a quota. So great connection that you can make for the students, Frank. All right.
I would also say, just in history right now, the Codfather, like the Godfather in New Bedford, just went to jail for.
Godfather.
They call it the Codfather. If you look it up, New Bedford Codfather, you'll see it. It's quite interesting. I think the students would love to read about it.
All right. Any other questions about this activity before we try one more? Okay. So we're going to do another activity. This one is going to be the orange market. So go ahead and stay in student view. I'll share this screen. All right, can you see the orange market slide? Yeah, okay. So again, this would be, I would direct the students if they were playing on a mobile device to, log into their MobLab app or pull it up on their screen. And now we're gonna play a market game. And so here's the instructions for the market game, and I'm also gonna show you what the screens will look like when you get into play. So this activity is like the FTE in the chips activity, if you've played that one, where the students have cards for buyers and sellers, and they're moving around. And it was one of my all-time favorites. And you watch you're tracking all the prices that they come in, and you watch this market price emerge. In this activity, the students are going to be randomly assigned to the roles of buyers, producers, sellers, and buyers of oranges. And they're going to be put into groups of 10. So there'll be 10 students here, 10 students here. So think about that when you're deciding on the, when you're just be aware of how many students are playing in your class. And I'll tell you what to do. I'll show you in a minute how to handle that if you don't have an even number, if you don't have exactly 30 students there. So this is what the screen looks like for people that are selling oranges. And so you have this little, actually this is gonna be, who said they were, oh, this is the other Frank. This is totally his area. He's a trader, right? So now Frank, I don't know, you might be a buyer, you might be a seller, but this is what the seller screen looks like. You can see your cost per orange up here. Every seller is gonna have 3 oranges to sell, and this is your cost per orange. And your earnings will be totaled here and will update throughout the game. You have 2 ways that you can sell an orange. Number 1, you can use this slider bar to decide what price you want to sell the orange at. And as you're sliding the bar, your profit or your earnings will adjust right here, so you don't have to do the math on your own. And it will go negative if selling it at that price would make you lose money. And when you're ready, when that sounds like a good price to you, you can click the ask button. That's just like if we were playing this in real life and a student were to say, I'm selling for $1.40, selling for $2, right? You're putting an ask out there. And so your ask, if it is one of the lowest 3 asks in the group, it'll show up over here on the right in the ask bar. Okay, the lowest 3 asks will always be displayed here. In this group, you'll notice there is no ask right here because currently there's only 2 asking prices. You can see the bids are showing up. So these are the offers that buyers are making to buy oranges. The highest 3 bids will always be displayed. And so as a seller, you can look at those and you could say, hey, somebody's gonna pay $1.03, cost me 65 cents, I'll take that deal. So you could just right away accept their deal by clicking sell at the highest bid, okay? So you can sell at the highest bid, you would immediately get this price. If you put out an ask, when a buyer accepts your ask, then you would also get that deal, okay?
Oh. Hello? Yeah, who's it?
Then we have, you got that one, Haley? Then we have your profit. If you were to sell at the highest bid, remember it cost you 65 cents. Notice these are 2 different things. If I were to ask $1.24 versus just sell at the highest bid of $1.03, I'm going to get 2 different prices for my orange if somebody accepts this ask or if I sell at this bid. All right, buyers, your screen looks almost identical, except it says buyer up here to the left. And instead of a cost, buyers have a value that they place on oranges. This is what an orange is worth to you. And so this first orange for you is worth $1.38. And you're willing to buy up to 3 oranges, okay? Just like sellers are willing to sell up to 3 oranges. And your earnings will be displayed here. Now, depending on the class you're teaching, this is where you might want to introduce that terminology of consumer surplus, right? We're using the term profit here, just like we do in the chips game, we call it a profit. But really when buyers gain, they're gaining because they get to pay less than it was worth to them. Just like we do every time we go to the store, and we buy something, especially if it's on sale, and it's something you're really excited about, and you want, like I just bought potatoes. I went to the ranch market, or like farmer's market, and I had this, potatoes were, was it $1 for 10 pounds? Yeah, $1 for 10 pounds. And I was so excited. I was like, what a great price. I called my dad to make sure he knew. I called my mom. That awesomeness feeling I had, that satisfaction, because I would have paid $5 for the potatoes and I just got them for $1. That's a gain to me. We're going to call it profit in the game. The economics term is consumer surplus, but that's what we're talking about here. And so buyers can make a bid. Just like the sellers can ask, the buyers get to make a bid, and you can slide the slider bar, and when it's set to a price that you like, you can put bid. If you're one of the top 3 bids, it'll show up over here on the right. Just like the lowest 3 asks will be displayed, buyers can also just look at what sellers are asking, and they could say, 87 cents? Sounds like a good deal, I'll take it. And they could buy at the lowest ask, and that transaction would go through. You will see the graph up here at the right will update with each time a sale is done or a transaction happens between a buyer and a seller in your group. The transaction will show up there at the right. All right, any questions so far? Okay, I want to point out one more thing. Let's see. All right. So buyers, when we eat that first orange, if you're really hungry and you really love oranges, you get a lot of satisfaction out of that first orange. And you might eat another orange, but that next orange isn't quite as enjoyable as the first one. And so you probably wouldn't be willing to pay as much for the second orange. And same thing for the third, right? By the time you're on a 10th orange, it's not giving you as much additional satisfaction. And so what buyers are going to notice is that then value of the next orange you're going to sell is going to be a little bit less than the one before that. And same with the third and the fourth. Well, there's no fourth in this game, but and depending on what class you're teaching with economics, this may be where you want to talk about, you know, diminishing marginal utility, or, you know, why demand curves are downward sloping, or connect to whatever point you are in the class when you're using this activity. I prefer to do this game before we've talked about supply and demand at all. I want them just to have the experience of being in a market, and then later when we talk about why demand curves are downward sloping, I can connect back to this activity, or when we're talking about things like equilibrium price. Same thing for sellers. Each additional orange you're willing to sell, but the cost for each additional orange is a little bit more than the cost before. So as you produce more and more oranges, the marginal cost of each orange is going up, and that's reflected in this game as well. So whether you want to call that out there, I would just let them know if you haven't taught about that yet, but if you're doing AP economics, you may want to make those connections while you're playing the game. All right, so we're going to do a survey just like before. If you go back to your game, make sure you're still in student mode. Let me get over here. I'm going to go to the orange market. I'm going to launch the pre-game survey. So you're going to see another active session for the August 13th workshop. Go ahead and refresh so you see that, and join the active session. You're going to see 2 questions in here related to the instructions that I just gave you. Unmute your microphone and just speak up if you have any questions. All right, while you're working on those questions, this is one of the questions that you saw. As a seller, what would be your profit if somebody accepts your ask of $1.24? Unmute your microphone and just call it out if you think you know the answer.
59 cents.
59 cents, good. That's just $1.24. The seller's gain is going to be the sale price minus the cost of production, 65 cents, which would be 59 cents.
I have a quick question. It was really like, I was able to see that, but it was really like small on my screen. Like if we're having, is there a way to make it larger? Because I feel like my students would be like, I can't tell what the value is.
Are you viewing it on a mobile device or on your?
No, on my computer.
You're on your computer screen. I'm going to let Nathaniel see if he has any insight on that one.
So depending whether you're on Windows or Mac, you can use Control and the plus sign to adjust the scale of your screen.
Okay.
Kind of zoom in and zoom out. Not sure if that helps.
Yeah, it's not hard for playing the game, but it was just, it's so small when it's in the quiz that it just, I was like, wow, it's like 2-point font. So, okay, but yep.
Because it is kind of in its own little window. How about buyers? As a buyer, what is your profit if you buy at the lowest ask? So right here, you're a buyer, you're looking at this screen. What would your profit be if you bought at the lowest ask?
51.
51 cents. I said Denny answered that one. If you value it at $1.38 and you get to buy it for 87 cents, the difference would be 51 cents. All right, so we're going to play the game. I'm going to go ahead and launch the game. So if you refresh, you will see an active session. You'll be assigned, you're going to find out if you're a buyer or a seller. Let me know if you're having any trouble connecting, if you're still getting in there. If you don't see any bids and asks show up just yet, it's because people are just getting started, but they'll start showing up. Okay, I see 22 of you in there. Anybody still trying to connect? Let me know and I'll wait for you. Okay, while you guys are playing this first game, I'll give you some insight to the teacher side of this game. So I'll also tell you, we're gonna play 3 periods and you have 3 oranges to sell in each or buy in each of those 3 periods if it's worth it to you. So you'd be willing to sell up to 3 oranges or buy up to 3 oranges. And each period lasts 2 minutes. So remember I told you you would be playing in groups of 10, but I have 20, I think there were like 22 or 23 people in the class. And so one of those groups I added robots to, so there was still 10 people in there. And MobLab has created very people-like robots that behave, you know, like people do. And they will play in there as buyers and sellers so that every student can have that experience of being in a group with, you know, 5 other buyers or a total of 10 students in the group. All right, looks like everybody is moving on to period 2. You have another chance, 3 more oranges to buy or sell.
Yeah, for those who are playing the robots are actually, their strategy is just mimicking real student play from just data that we have accumulated over the years. So they're supposed to be very human-like, not just 100% rational. They also can make some mistakes.
When we did this over the summer, we did the ultimatum game with the high school students, and inevitably there would be some student, it was always the first game that we played. And so twice I had, of all the times I did it over the summer, twice I had students that weren't able, they came to the class late, they didn't get to play that first game, and they were like, please, can I play the ultimatum game? And so I would just set up a game just for them, and I would add a robot that they would play with. And both times the kids ended up getting nothing. It's like, I didn't tell them they'd be playing with a robot, but they probably anticipated and thought that those robots would be maybe less rational. All right, looks like everybody's coming up on the end of period 2. I'm going to show you my screen so you could see while I'm watching this happen. I can open any one of your groups and I can actually see the current bids. I can see the current asks. I can see all the transactions in blue that have taken place, where the current bids and asks are. Now that round just ended, so that's why that graph disappeared. You can see I just had somebody join late and there was 1 person in that group. So I added robots. So there's now 10 people, 9 other people playing with them. But this is what the screen would look like when you're the instructor, and you'll get to see that in just a minute. We'll peek in on another group here and see how they're doing. Okay, so you can see in this group that I'm observing, you might recognize this is your group. I can see the bids and the asks, how far apart they are. You can see when those transactions are happening. I can also peek and see who is in each group. When I click on the 10 participants, like in group 2, for example, I can see who's in this group. Oh, you guys have Nathaniel in your group. And I can see that most of the groups are in the middle of round 3. Okay, we have 40 seconds left. Again, this was the hardest part for me getting used to as the teacher, was having these games run, and they were so quiet. So you're like me, I encourage the students. I'm like, you can unmute your microphones, talk to each other. And there were always some fun, you know, the students, the lively ones that would give real-time plays of what was happening in their group and try to send messages to people. But when they do talk and share, I mean, really, it's just information. It helps the students gather information about what's happening out there in the marketplace. All right, looks like most groups have finished round 3. I think Ted, you jumped in and we're still going, but I'm gonna go ahead and the game, yeah, that game is over because the time ran out. What I would do with the students is then I would do a post survey, just like the pre-survey, but the purpose of this one would be to ask them what they think the equilibrium price and quantity was. For sake of time, I'm gonna skip that and I'm gonna share a different screen with you. I'm gonna show you the results. Again, I like to play these kind of games before they have seen supply and demand. So when I show them the results, I kind of skip past, I don't really focus on the supply and demand graphs as much as I do how many trades were done in each group, what was the, you know, what price did they go for. And we can see in this group right here for group 1, that it looks most of the trades were for, this is for period 1, were happening somewhere around $1.12, probably a little bit under that on average. And they had 11 transactions. The second group, 12 transactions, all right here, kind of around $1.12. And the third group, interesting, notice how their transactions started kind of low, but then the price kind of came up and ended around $1.12. And here was group 4. And all of them had 11 or 12 transactions. I can change it to period 3 and look at our last round. And what do you notice already for the last round? Any differences, whether from this picture we're looking at or from your experience? How did it change as we went from round 1 to round 2 to round 3? Just unmute your microphone and speak up if you have insight.
People started higher or sold?
In the last round or in the first round?
Well, like as a buyer, I know I started at a higher like offering price than where I did in round 1.
So you realize probably not worth my time to say I'll pay a penny, right? You start a little bit higher because you realize nobody's going to sell me an orange at a penny. So you had more information. I imagine the same things happened to the asks that the sellers were asking. So maybe there wasn't quite as big of a spread. Any other observations?
Yeah, I think that's what I'd say. The spread's tightened up as it gets more efficient, the market,
Okay.
with repetition.
And look at the number of transactions here in this last round. We had 12 and 14 in these groups in that last round. So maybe a little bit more. So, and again, if you were teaching and you had already done supply and demand, you could actually analyze and talk about the supply and demand graphs and how they represent the buyers that were and the sellers that were actually interacting in this game. So same thing, you could show a scoreboard, and if you wanted to, to award like the top 2 sellers or the top 2 buyers. And when I did that this summer, can you guys see the scoreboard? Am I showing that? I would just look, I would see, okay, here's the top one at the very top is a seller, and I would show their name. Good job, Wendy. She was the top seller in this activity. And then the next seller, I have to come down here to the 4th person on the list, and that was Tammy. She was our number 2 seller. And you could award those students. Same thing for buyers. Our number 1 buyer was test 1, whoever test 1 is. We have, that was a robot.
That's James, actually. I gave him a test user.
Okay, so James, that was you. Congratulations. And Skeeter was number 2 buyer. All right. So, but then
Debbie,
you could also, for your purposes, you could see all the results. Go ahead, Nathaniel.
We had one question in the chat about the results. If you could also show the statistics about efficiency and surplus.
So tell me where to go to do that, Nathaniel. Do I go back
where
to
you were with
results?
the graphs? Yes. And so at the very top, once this window loads, there's actually another tab. Let's see, depending on how many groups we have, it takes a while. The breakdown tab.
Okay.
So there you get some stats, on average price, quantity, surplus, market efficiency for all groups.
How much of the gains went to the buyer versus the seller.
Exactly, yeah.
And these graphs, when I was reviewing, with our students, because we actually brought this game back and did it another version at the end of the week with a tariff. And by that time they had seen supply and demand, and we looked at these supply and demand graphs. One thing I pointed out here is that this is what the numbers predict the equilibrium price would be. But inevitably there would be a group that their prices were always a little bit lower, than the equilibrium. And that's because market prices aren't set, right? They emerge. And there's nothing that says, the buyers and sellers are going to equally capture those gains from trade. You might have a Wendy in your group who is really good and captures more of the trades than some buyer. So let me bring it over to another screen for you. And just to point out a couple other takeaways that you would want to reinforce with this kind of activity. One of the biggest losses I feel like I've experienced since we've had to go virtual is the trade game, the bag game, where the students all get an item and they trade. And let me know as soon as you find somebody that's found a way to recreate that. But I missed having that activity, and running this and being thoughtful about the way I debriefed it allowed us to kind of still create those same takeaways that they would get from the bag game. Because essentially they're still trading, right? They're trading something. They have something that they are considering giving away or selling, and they have something they're willing to buy. And so I would ask students this question, did anybody choose not to buy or sell an orange in a particular round? So is there anybody that was holding on to an orange? You had an orange, but you were like, I'm not going to sell it at that price. Anybody? Maybe your last orange, you chose not to sell it. Rachel?
I tried to, just no one was willing to pay the price that I was asking for, and I didn't want to lose money, so.
But there were buyers that were offering to pay?
No.
No buyers were, I'm not saying would they pay what you wanted. Were there bids? Were buyers saying, I'll pay this amount? Like, were there bids
Not
that
what I wanted.
Okay. But you can look at those. And so, and if they're not offering enough, nobody's forcing you to sell your orange. And so there were definitely people that didn't sell. There were 15 oranges that could have been sold, and none of those were their 15 oranges that were sold every round. So several of you made the choice at some point not to sell an orange or not to buy an orange. Somebody that was a buyer, tell me why you didn't buy an orange, even though maybe you only bought 2 that round.
I only bought 2 in one round because they were really expensive. They were asking for more than $2 for them. And then I was like, nope, I'm not buying any of those.
Yeah, not worth it to you. And so then how could we kind of decide or explain what, can you sum that up to explain why somebody chose to make why would somebody choose to buy, or why would somebody choose to sell? How can we sum up that decision-making process that Martha just described?
Well, it's cost-benefit analysis and it's opportunity cost.
If it's worth it, if the benefit is greater than the cost, you did it. And if it wasn't, you didn't do it. And it's the same way when we did the trade game, right? Anything you looked at, you thought, sure, I'll trade if what you're getting is more valuable than what you're giving up. And we're making those same calculations, those same decisions in this game. So I bring them to that, marginal benefit, marginal cost. As long as the marginal benefit is greater than the marginal cost, we do it. So, and then I show them a picture of this transaction, this slide that we saw in the beginning, but I put in some little word bubbles. What if this was a transaction you observed and the orange producers, the seller is saying $1.40 and the buyer says, deal. Who's the winner in this transaction?
Hopefully both of them.
Yeah.
Hopefully both of them. I don't know anything about them. They don't even have eyeballs, right? I don't know. I only know one thing about them, is that they're both agreeing to this trade. And so what can I assume about the person selling the orange? If he's saying $1.40, what do I know about that seller?
That it costs less than $1.40 to
it's worth it to
produce
him.
the orange.
He's looking at that like, this is a good deal for me. And how about the buyer? Same thing. If he's saying deal, he's saying worth it to me. And so both of them see themselves as gaining in this transaction, or they wouldn't be doing it. Now, what I don't know is how much each of them gained. The seller could have gained this much and the buyer this much. Does it matter? Did you know how much anybody gained that you traded with? The only thing you needed to know was it worth it to me? And if both people said yes, a trade happened. And that's why we say that trade creates wealth. Because every time a transaction is happening, the buyer and the seller are saying, it's worth it to me. I'm gaining more than I'm giving up. And so that is how wealth is created. When we say markets create wealth, trade creates wealth. The same lesson that I would have used or pulled out of the bag game, I'm able to pull out of this activity when we debrief it and kind of analyze an individual transaction that happened in that game. So that's my solution right now as a replacement for the bag game, but let me know if you come up with something for that, because it's a great experience. And so then you would just proceed to take the students through the questions and helping them understand how market prices emerge. If buyers could set the price, it would have been really low, or if sellers could set it, it would be really high. And helping them see who is in competition with whom. Sellers, who are you competing with? Who is your competition, sellers?
Other sellers.
Other sellers. And how do you compete with them? By undercutting each other. And when sellers compete with sellers and drive the price down, it protects buyers. Buyers win. And buyers compete with buyers by outbidding each other. And so I would pull the students in and ask them to give me examples. How did you compete with another buyer? So they're connecting to the way that they played the game. And as buyers outbid each other and drive the price up, that sellers win. Sellers are protected. And so I'm just going to go ahead and skip through these so we can get to the backside of the game. But here are two activities that literally this is in the CHIPS game, right? It's just now we can do it virtually with students. Once they get connected and they've done one game, do you see how much smoother it went for the second? Then they're like, oh, MobLab, okay, ready to go. The kids loved the very last day. They're like, oh, it's our last MobLab activity. So the students loved the activity. Ted can attest because he read all the evaluations. I checked some of them, but there were frequently comments from students about, I loved MobLab, it was so fun. And then you could award students if you want. All right, what I want to do right now is give some of you the chance to launch a game and we can play as students, okay? So do we have any volunteers that want to be the role of teacher? Why don't all of you go back into teacher mode right now? So go back, change your role at the top right, change it from blue back to red, go back into instructor view. Change my screen over here. So you're going to change this and you're going to go to instructor view instead of student view. So can you see the August 13th workshop playlist now and all the games that we played?
Yep.
I want you to pick one of those games. The games have the little, like the old Nintendo, game controller icon right there. Those are the ones that you know are games, and the ones that are surveys have the little list thing next to them. But if you click on one that we played, you can then see over on the right, you can see the results. You can go and view the results. You can view the scoreboard. One thing I didn't show you, but that in the lesson plan instructions, it actually tells you as part of the setup for the game that you could consider giving the students homework the night before. We did this for the EFL programs, but I found it wasn't really necessary. I kind of just still set it up each day. But if you wanted to give the students instructions, notice over here on the right in this, when you click on one of the games, you have these two options. You have configure and monitor. We'll look at those in a minute. But on the far right, you have where you see the guide, the results. These are kind of the MobLab instructions, the details about the game. If you wanted to get into the nitty gritty of changing the parameters, or so the equilibrium price would be something different, or more people in a group, or that's where you would kind of understand how to do that. But you could also just copy the game as is, and it will run just like it's set up in the FTE lesson plan if you want to do it that way to keep it simple. So what was I going to show you in here? Oh, instructions. So the instructions, when you open them up, it brings you to this page that actually has its own URL that you could just copy, and you could give students this link. They don't have to log into MobLab to see the instructions. You could just put it, we just put it in the Canvas course. It would take them right to this window. They could watch a video. See, I'm not sharing my sound, but they can listen to somebody explain how the game will be played. See that?
Is that for only certain games that you guys used, or is it for all the games in here?
Every game I tried to use had instructions. Nathaniel? Yeah?
Yes, so every game has instructions. Not all games have video instructions, only our most popular one.
And some of the games all the games also have this PowerPoint template, which I just clicked on and downloaded another copy. But those slides that I got and put into the FTE slides, MobLab already created those and had the windows of exactly what the games would look like when the students got in there, which was very useful because I could just say, here's what you're going to see, and I didn't have to create all those from scratch, which was very helpful this summer. Okay, any questions so far about the things that you're looking at, the things you're seeing on the teacher side?
I have questions about just account in general. Are we going to get some time for that later?
Yeah, no, go ahead, Kathy.
Well, so a couple questions. I mean, these are fabulous. So if you had a MobLab account, obviously it's a fee-based thing. Do you have access to their entire library? And is the fee per student that's currently logged on, or any student that you want to use it throughout your semester? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I'll take a stab at the first just overview, and then I'll let Nathaniel jump in with the nitty gritty. Your teacher account that you have access to, you can see all of the games. So I'm still sharing my screen, right? You can see
Yes.
my MobLab account.
Yeah.
So when I go to my home page, you can see these are all my classes, and I can see I can have access to their whole library. And as a teacher, I can see all of these resources. When I do this with the college, it's on my students to pay for access to MobLab. And I understand that's very different in the high school arena. You're not going to have your students probably paying for MobLab. So there are institutional, the way we did it with FTE this summer, FTE paid for a site license that covered all this, our expected student usage for the summer for a given amount of time. So normally the normal price for college students for full access is, I think, $25, and they cut that in half. So I think it's $12 is the normal price per high school student. But Nathaniel actually has a deal for FTE participants in this workshop. So I'll let you explain that, Nathaniel.
Yeah, thanks, Debbie. So yeah, all our pricing rates, they're based, just on the expected student enrollment. And so as Debbie said, for high schools, we usually charge $12 per student per course. But we're very excited, for this partnership with FTE, and we're still kind of working out the details, but we're willing to offer, first of all, everyone who attended the workshop today, a free trial for one game. That's probably the fishery game that we played until September. So if you wanted to play this game in the next coming weeks, feel free to reach out either to Debbie or to me, and then we can set you up with this free trial for the fishery game. And then we also decided to offer a 25% discount on the $12 rate if you would like to play more games. So it would then be $9 per student per course. So that's the ballpark of prices that the subscription would be.
Thank you, Nathaniel. I appreciate that.
Nathaniel, when you say per course, are you talking about for a period of time? Like we have our kids all year long. So would this be like $9 for the year for all my students?
That's a great question. So our system, you know, the subscription doesn't expire. So it's just whatever the duration of your course is. Now, you know, for most universities, it's just for one semester. But if you're together with the same pool of students for 1 year, then you could just use it for an entire year.
Great,
and Adam asked, was the 9 for all the games, or was that for just some games?
So the $9 is specifically for these FTE lesson modules that you used over the summer. I think it's 4 of our most popular games.
Yeah, and so that would be, you could basically configure those games to play if you played the ultimatum game, the market game and then a tariff variation of that, like a global orange market. So the orange market game, tragedy of the commons, and a job jungle, a labor market activity. Any other questions?
I want to maybe just add, you know, if I say per or game, like for example, the orange market game that we just played right now, you know, it's just one game, but there's so many treatment applications that you can do with this game. You know, you can run the same game again, and you can impose a
price
tax on the sellers or a price control, etc. Yeah. So.
And the fish game that we play, there's like a property rights, you know, like we played 2 versions of that game, 2 different treatments, where there was property rights and then a commons fishery. So.
And Debbie, what is the ultimatum game?
That is the one where the students we would give the students like 10 extra credit points in class, or $10, and they have to split it anonymously with somebody else in the class. Okay. And the idea is if people are self-interested, you know, and rational, and you expect other people to do the same, you would expect those splits to be very inequitable. You know, like people to say, well, I'll take 9 and you get 1. But what you see is that most of the splits are 50-50, and the average is about 60-40. And very few, you know, and when people do offer those kind of very very inequitable splits, a lot of times they're rejected and both parties get nothing. And so we use it in FTE to teach about institutions and markets, and what is it about markets that, because one of the, you know, one of the things the studies have shown is that you see more equitable splits where people interact more in markets. And so we use that as a launching off point to talk about, you know, institutions and.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, other questions? All right, so who would like to try their hand at running one of the games?
Hey, Debbie, real quick. Kathy had a good question in the chat.
Okay.
For Nathaniel.
Okay, so Kathy said she has 35 students in class, but 150 student contacts. Do they need 35 licenses? So as I understand it, you would say, this is how many students I expect to be using my games, logging in and playing the games over the course of the semester or the year, whatever that term is. And then they would, you know, negotiate that site license for that number of students. You get a code that you give to your students. The students don't ever have to pay. They just use that code to get into your class, but your school would pay that flat amount. Is that correct, Nathaniel?
That is correct, yes.
All right, who wants to be our first guinea pig? What I'm going to do right now is give you guys a link to a folder so I don't forget. I'm going to put it in the chat so you can copy it.
Yes, I am.
Get a shareable link.
Yes, I am.
All right, so this folder, whoops, that's Martha's email address. Copy the link. All right. This folder, if you click on that folder, it's going to give you the lesson slides and the write-ups for each lesson. So if I'm sharing, I can't remember if I'm sharing screen too. We'll go here. So here, for example, are the write-up, the instructions for the orange market activity. It does link to the In the Chips if if you've played that game or you want to see the parallels, but it's actually, and it also, lets you know it's a MobLab activity. And then it just walks through the procedures, the description, and the procedures for how you would play the game and use the slides along with that to run that market simulation with your students virtually. Okay, and same thing for the fish game. There's the instructions in there and the slides that would go with that. And if you want to sign up for that free trial that Nathaniel was talking about, then we'll put you in. Did I not share that link?
I don't think I got the link.
Okay, now I clicked enter. Now look in the chat.
Okay.
Then Nathaniel can help set your account up with that for that class so that you have access and you could try that game out with your students in September. All right, who wants to be a volunteer that wants to try? And you'll get to see it as a teacher, and then we will be the participants in your activity. How many times are you going to get a chance to do this? Be brave. I try to get my students my own kids to be my guinea pigs, but sometimes it's nice to have actual participants playing. Nobody wants to volunteer? Oh, it says you have to request access. Okay, I'm fixing that folder right now. Let me try again. Share settings. Anybody can view it, it says. Does that, so if you try to edit it, it will say that you have to get access to edit it, but you should be able to make a copy. That's what you would want to do so that you can edit it. So try again. Are you able to open it and see it? You just can't make any changes, right? Anybody?
It just says request access. It won't let me open it.
Yeah, it won't let me open it either.
I requested access to all of them, so.
Oh, for the actual documents.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, you know what? I will fix that. I must have to go fix the document, so I will fix each of them. All right. Give me a minute to fix that right after, everybody. Make sure if somebody wants to have a chance to play a game, they can participate. Anybody? Last chance? Okay, I will fix that then, and we'll just leave it for other questions that you might have about using MobLab or these activities virtually with students. Some of you might have noticed that some of the slides I used in the fish game were set up to be Pear Deck slides, but I didn't run it with Pear Deck. I know some of you are in the Pear Deck activity or lesson. And those are just, if that was something you were comfortable with using, it would allow students to answer some of those debriefing questions using Pear Deck. But I also understand the importance of keeping it simple and not having students going to too many places. And so I just chose to run this and just debrief just like we would in a classroom by just asking you and having you unmute your microphones. So, okay, I will work on sharing those documents right now. And then if you have any other questions for Nathaniel or myself, just unmute your microphone and ask. But we also have an evaluation for you. Do you have the link for that, Haley?
I do, and I'll put it in the chat right now.
Okay.
So Nathaniel, you said that the games that would be included would be the ones that FTE had used. Is there a way for us to know which ones those are?
I believe they're listed on the FTE website, right?
We don't have it posted anywhere specifically on the website yet. We will have to package that together as here's the MobLab set of resources. But there's 4 games. One is the Orange Market. The other one is the Fishery, the Ultimatum game, and then a Labor Market game, which goes with the Job Jungle.
Okay, so just those 4 would be the ones that we can. Okay.
Everyone, I just put the link to the survey into the chat. So if everyone can go ahead and fill out that survey when you have a minute, you can also request a certificate to be sent to you if, for professional development hours, if that's something that you're interested in, but we would appreciate the feedback. Thank you.
Okay, the lessons are both shared, and the slides we will share as well. We're going to do, for those of you, I know some of you have did the Pear Deck workshop, but we have, if you haven't done that yet, that's another technology or app that we used this summer with the students that makes, allowed us to run some of the activities virtually. So other activities that aren't part of these MobLab ones, like Cartels and Competition, Farmers and Fishers, Markets in Action, the Great Depression, if you've done the history activity, those are all lessons that we've been able to create and conduct virtually using something called Pear Deck. So if you're interested in that, on the FTE website, you can find the links to our registration for those upcoming workshops. Actually, one of them is today at 4 o'clock. So, but I think we'll be offering that again in the future. All right, there's Orange Market, and now last one I'm sharing, Fish Game. So after you have done your, now I'll tell that to the Pear Deck. I know some of you were in the Pear Deck workshop, so I just wanted to throw it out there that I had talked about the 90-day free trial that they had, and mine had run out like the first day we did the Pear Deck workshop. When I actually just clicked on it, it gave me another, it said, oh, do you want to do 90 days free access again? So if some of you are worried about when do you start your Pear Deck free access, they're still running that promo. Okay, all of those documents should be shared now when you go in that folder. Once you've done your evaluation, then you're free to go. I will say, I'm gonna go back to the MobLab screen just to show you. So when you get into MobLab, you'll see your class that you can kind of like, I think of that as a playground where I can play around with different things. But you can also copy so for this FTE workshop, this playlist that we have here, you could just, you can copy this playlist like we've done here. So this is the FTE workshop, but I could change it and I could copy it to my class, Debbie's first class. And when I do that, and then I go back into my other class, Debbie's class, I can see that playlist, but I have the ability to rename it. All of the games they're bold white again because they haven't been played. There was one of them I made a copy of. We did it. Oh yeah, this one. I don't need that. That was because one of them got started early. So I could go in here and I could change this. I could say I could put just the fish game in one playlist, and I could put just the market game in another playlist. I could add a playlist here, but playlists are how MobLab kind of organizes their games and their activities. I know some of you from past workshops I've seen you in are teaching some of your instruction will be done asynchronously. And this is a brand new feature that MobLab just rolled out this summer. And that's the ability to run some of the games asynchronously. So the students log in and they kind of play them on their own time. And those are modules. Is that correct, Nathaniel?
Yes, that's correct.
And so there's, go ahead, Nathaniel, or you tell me where to go.
Yeah, I think these are just some similar probably to the FTE modules. We have our own lesson modules. Some of them are more like, upper level, others are more like college level. So feel free to browse and explore the library a bit further by yourselves. And
but the way, here's an example of one. Am I showing us my MobLab screen? Yeah, is that what's showing? Okay, so this one that says supply, demand, and equilibrium, on the bottom of it, it has the little globe that says compatible. And that's the symbol for, that is one that's built to be compatible with running it asynchronously. And so if I add that, let me add it. I'll add it to my default playlist. So the difference between that is when I expand that, notice how they're all yellow. when I actually start this, the students can play this playlist on their own time because everything in the playlist will be live. So they can get in, when you're running this in your class, I can only have one thing going in the playlist at a time. So I can have the survey going and that's what everybody's gonna participate. And then when I launch the game, that's all that they're gonna see and everybody will do the game and we're all doing it at the same time. But with the asynchronous option, you just launch the module and the students can, all of those things are live. So they can do the survey and then they could move on to the game and they could move on to the post survey and they could do all of those on their own time. The difference is they're playing with robots. They're not, playing with people live in the classroom. But for some
Debbie,
of you,
do you set like an open and an end date on that, or do they?
You do.
Okay, that's pretty cool.
Yeah,
And
you
get to
set
take
up the
data?
time that you want that to run.
Wow.
And I know there's some setting, when I add it, I had to check a setting, right, Nathaniel, to make it asynchronous?
Yes, so you have to create a new playlist if you click on that plus button there, and then you can name it test or something like that. And then in this second field, you just choose online assignment. And any activity now that you add to this new playlist, yeah, you can just add the whole module. And if you click now on the 3 white dots next to the playlist name, you can say set availability. And so you can schedule the dates or the time window within which students can complete this. But the activity itself, they can complete at their own pace within the specified time window. And obviously, as Debbie explained, since that gives students the flexibility to complete it at their own pace, they won't be interacting with their classmates, but instead they will play those robots, which, the robot play is still based on actual student behavior. So the experience is very similar.
I have a couple questions.
Go ahead.
So these are all micro games, basically. You don't
There
have
are
any...
macro games. If you want, yeah. So if you teach AP macros, here I scrolled. Well, here's, did I go too high or too low? There's macro and finance. They have a section.
Okay.
And so I'll leave it there so you can see the names of some of those games.
Okay. All right. And if we were to be able to fund the $12 per student, would that give us access to the full library, Nathaniel, as opposed to just the FTE library?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. And Debbie, like the Magic of Markets game that you don't have, that we can't do, but like the Orange game allowed you to tease out some of those things. I mean, could you, so it seems to me like you could play that. You could play the Orange game like 4 or 5 times because you could just zero in on, one aspect of it in the debrief. And then you play it again for supply and demand, then you play it again for ceilings and floors, then you play it again for tariffs or, you know, okay.
You could do that. And we did it for, we brought it back and played the global orange market and did it in a tariff treatment to the game. And it was just as fun when they played it again, but now they have a baseline experience of what it was like when this market was open and competitive and free. And so they're always kind of like, well, that wasn't as fun, but that's the whole takeaway, right? You can feel the gains from trade that are just sucked out of the game when you put those in place. Also, those of you that might teach government, we looked at including some of the public choice options. We ended up not settling on those as the ones for this summer, but they have some in there that, where they're kind of deciding very timely for the election, kind of the voter paradox. So there's some games for that. And under game theory, that's where you'll find the ultimatum game, but there's actually lots of variations of that. Some of you may be familiar with the different experiments and things that have been done, similar to the ultimatum game, the centipede game, and there's all kinds of, behavioral economics implications and lessons you could pull out from those. But those are some other ones I see that might connect to the high school classroom.
Now, as instructors, do we have access, so do we have access to like looking at all this, and it's just on the student participation side that you would have this license that would allow them to do it? But we could look at all this stuff, is that true?
Yes, that's correct, Nathaniel, right? So I have my teacher account, and I can see all of this, but when I set up a class that students want to join, unless I have a secret, like I have a license code, the students to join that class are going to have to pay. And so I could play around with all of this, but that class that's built is the one that, that's where you're going to decide. It's the free access, that class that, the students could get into with the code that you get set up with Nathaniel, or the discounted code, or the, correct, Nathaniel?
Yes,
Jump in
that's
if you
correct.
have
Yeah.
better.
So I think all of you, or everyone who participated today, has now their own MobLab instructor account. And so you can freely demo and preview all of those games and explore the library a bit further by yourself. And then once you decide, I want to run this with my students, then we can provide you with a license and then coordinate from there.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Well,
Thank you guys for, go ahead.
Yeah, this is so fabulous. I mean, it just gives me so much hope to be able to do stuff that I, as part of how I teach if I'm stuck at home.
Once again, econ is going to be your students' favorite class,
Yeah,
even virtually.
Yeah, exactly.
Do we just contact Nathaniel? I may have missed it. I'm sorry. Was back and forth. If we want information about a site license, do we just contact Nathaniel, or who should we contact?
I would say Nathaniel. Is that okay, Nathaniel?
Yes. Yeah. And you feel free to share my contact information with everyone who participated after.
It's very clear how much time has gone into these games. It's awesome. So
yeah, their platform is amazing.
Yeah, so cool.
Thank you.
All right, well, with that, you guys have a good afternoon. Thank you for giving up 2 hours to be with us, and good luck this semester teaching all of your students virtually. And stay tuned if we come across other, things that we can share with you, or new FT activities that are virtually, we will push those out and you'll hear about them and maybe have a workshop around them.
Great.
Good luck, everybody.
Thanks.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. That was awesome.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Thanks a lot,
guys.
Thank you, everyone.
Do you
Thank
have
you.
something, Debbie, before you jump out?
I'll be here. Go ahead, Frank.
Thanks. I had to jump out for something, but I missed a little bit. But I understand, the complete MobLab. I've joined it already, so I'm good to go with that. But with respect to FTE, was that link that you sent for the Google Drive? Were those the lessons that you guys worked up working with this material, basically?
Those are the 2 lessons that we did for today's workshop.
For today.
So those are the lessons and the instructions for how you would do them with MobLab to teach that lesson virtually.
Okay. And is that all the content that your organization has worked up with?
So we
this?
have more that we have another treatment of the orange game that is the global orange market.
Okay.
And we have an ultimatum game, and those are ready to go. There's a labor market game, that our job jungle game, that will go well with a MobLab labor market game that they have that we are working on, but we don't have that one ready yet. And the Great Depression is Pear Deck. So those are the ones that we.
Yeah. So
3 of the 4.
You'll notify us somehow or whatever. You'll make it available.
Yeah, we're coming up with a way right now that we can capture and put them somewhere on the website, which will be like, this is kind of the FTE MobLab package or resources with information about how teachers can get that free game with MobLab, that free access for a month, and then the instructions to basically contact Nathaniel to set that up, or to get a discount for their classes for the fall.
Tremendous. Again, thanks. Sorry to hold you there, but I had to jump out.
No, thank you guys for being here today.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, thanks.
Thank you.